France continues to deport hundreds more Roma, even as the controversial move draws widespread criticism. Paris now says it will seek EU support. But is it really an EU issue or a political ploy to boost Nicolas Sarkozy's falling popularity? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Sami Zaidan. Well, France says Roma immigration is a European problem and not just a French one. As French and Romanian officials meet to discuss the matter, France is urging the European Union to force Romania to stem the flow of the Roma, also known as gypsies, to the rest of Europe. Well, last month, France's government announced plans to demolish illegal Roma camps. Since then, more than 600 gypsies have been sent back to Eastern Europe, mostly to Romania and Bulgaria. Well, several human rights groups have slammed the campaign as racist, while some lawmakers in France consider it a political ploy. Romania, on the other hand, questioning the legality of the move. The French government insists the expulsions are part of its campaign against crime. In addition, it says most repatriations have been voluntary with financial compensation.
I think these criticisms are very excessive. We expel people according to the European Union guideline from 2004, which applies to everybody, not only to Romas, but also to Belgians, Portuguese, Spanish. This is the European law. We add funds to these returns, which no other European state does. I think that the criticisms are very excessive, unjust and excessive.
Well, joining our discussion today are our guests in New York, Robert Cushin, Executive Director of the European Roma Rights Centre. In Bucharest, Rodica Prikop, Deputy Editor of the 9 o'clock newspaper. And in London, political commentator and writer Christian Rudeau. Thanks so much for joining us. If I could start with Mr. Cushin, is it clear at this point whether the deportation policy is in contravention of EU regulations?
Well, the policy that the French government announced singled out an ethnic group, the Roma, on the basis of their ethnicity and accused them as a group of being complicit in criminal activity. That is a policy which is not consistent with international human rights law or European law.
But the European Commission is yet to draw up that conclusion, isn't it?
That's true. The Commission is, I think, probably waiting for concrete cases. And of course, the French are now characterizing the returns of people as, quote, voluntary. And so it remains to be seen. We've been interviewing people who have been returned and are looking at the legality of particular cases. And I think that's what the Commission is waiting for as well. But there are two dimensions to this issue, as you noted in the introduction. One is legal and one is political. All right, let's get the perspective of Mr. Rudeau. How do you respond to that, the suggestion that you're simply targeting people as an ethnic community?
To start with, I would beg to differ with your interviewee in saying that it's illegal. I don't think that France on this issue is breaking law, the EU law, in the sense that it was negotiated before 2007 when Romania and Bulgaria joined the EU, that there would need a resident permit and work permit for Romanian and Bulgarian citizens. And if they haven't got this permit, they can't stay more than 3 months. So,
but the EU Justice Commissioner is expressing concern, isn't he? He's even launched an investigation into what France is up to.
He has expressed concern. As he concluded that it's illegal, we don't know yet.
All right, Ms. Prikop, there's going to be a meeting in Paris the 6th of September. You haven't been invited. Romania hasn't been invited. Do you think this meeting is divisive?
Well, it's difficult to say, but Brussels is also concerned by this meeting in Paris because only 6 European countries have been invited so far, and the Commission representatives didn't get an invitation as well. And Commissioner Reding said today that there cannot be a discussion about Roma issue at EU level outside the framework of the Commission.
All right,
So it's not only Romania and Bulgaria who has not been invited, but the Commission as well.
All right, Mr. Rudeau, is France trying to gang up and gain support of some EU countries against others?
I think it's quite obvious that there is a problem. I'm not trying to defend President Sarkozy because he is my president. I'm a journalist and I'm a political commentator. I'm trying to understand the two sides of the argument. It would be foolish not to recognize that there is a problem. There is a Roma issue. Not all the Roma pose a problem, but that's true that there is a problem of poor schooling for children, problem of mendicity, problem of human trafficking. And that's an issue which has to be addressed, and not only in France, but in the rest of the EU. And I think it's quite rich from Romania or from Bulgaria to say that France don't respect human rights. I mean, I understand that these communities in their own country are poorly treated, aren't they?
Well, but perhaps the question is the best way to deal with this by having a select meeting of a small number of European countries? Isn't that more divisive rather than constructive?
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that. I quite agree, but you have to recognize also that these populations, these communities, tend to come to rich countries. So one has to recognize this issue and to accept that if it's a small group of countries, that's probably the best place to deal with this issue, because they are the countries where these populations are coming.
All right, perhaps we'll take one point you made there too, Mr. Prikop. Is it time perhaps for the European Commission to take the lead and put together some kind of common policy on how to deal with the issue of Roma immigration so that countries like France aren't forced to deal with it on their own?
Yes, in 2008 there was the first EU Roma summit, as you probably know, and a strategy has been put in place to deal with the problems Roma populations throughout the European Union are facing, but little has been done. I mean, quite frankly, the results are very poor. But going back to your other guest in London, I would like to say that there are countries who are afraid to apply the law. I mean, for petty crimes like begging, or even more important crimes like exploiting children, because sending small children, toddlers, in the traffic to beg for money, it's very dangerous. I mean, simply if France or Germany or other countries and Romania and Bulgaria would apply the law, these children would be taken from the Roma families or other families who put in danger their kids, and the parents should face the consequences. I have to say that Finland, who is maybe the champion of human rights in the world and very, very open society, dealt with the problem just by applying the law. They removed the children from a family of Romanian Roma beggars and sent the unworthy parents back to their country. I mean, they just applied the law.
All right,
it's not a problem of minority.
All right,
here.
let's take some of the points that are being made here to Mr. Cushion. Who has the responsibility for solving some of the challenges facing the Roma community? I mean, should we be blaming the French? Should we be blaming Bulgarian and Romanian governments for lack of attention to the problems of the Roma community? Or is it the Roma community themselves who should be more organized in addressing their challenges?
Well, I think the answer is all of the above. France has announced a policy that is ethnically based and therefore objectionable. And they've chosen to implement a policy that has no relationship to the problems that they've purported to define. If you have a criminal justice problem, you deal with it through your criminal justice system, through the prosecution of people who have actually committed crimes. If you have a migration or immigration issue, you deal with that consistent with EU law respecting freedom of movement. What France has done instead is expelled a lot of people who, some of whom have lived in France for a long time. We spoke to one
hang on,
family
Mr.
that had been
Cushion,
there
I think
for
the point which Mr.
7
Rudeau
years with a
made
woman
earlier, the point
yeah.
which Mr. Rudeau made earlier was that they're simply applying also a regulation about not staying more than 3 months if you haven't got the proper work permits.
Well, but as I said, I think you have to look at the real impact of what France is doing, which is to use a sledgehammer approach, sweep up as many people as they can and get them out of the country, many of whom do have a legal right to be in France.
What
now,
should
back
France
to your
do
original
then?
question,
Put yourself
yes,
in,
the EU
perhaps
has
the
a
French
responsibility.
shoes. What should France do to confront this issue?
Well, if there's a law enforcement issue, you deal with it by law enforcement means, which is that you identify people who you suspect have committed crimes, you investigate them, and you prosecute them. If France, we welcome France's call to the EU to get more involved on the issue of Roma inclusion generally, and that is a European problem. And so if France wants to be active in that area in promoting a European solution, that's all to the good. We have called for the European Union to
jump in there,
develop a
I think you've made your
comprehensive
point.
strategy for several years.
Let's talk to Mr. Rudeau now about, on the other hand, what does France realistically expect Romania and Bulgaria to do to stem the flow of the Roma people? What actually does that practically mean?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's a difficult issue, a tricky issue. I haven't got the answer. I don't know what France can expect, but basically,
well, I don't mean to say that you have to provide the answer, but what is the thinking in the French body politic
I mean,
right now?
To start with, we are in a situation, or we've got makeshift camps which are illegal in French suburbs, and so you have to address this issue when your previous interview says that the law must be enforced. Indeed, they have set up camps illegally, without water, without electricity, without any form of sanitation most of the time. So basically we are in an illegal situation, and one has to address this issue. Now we tend to agree with Robert when he says that there is political calculation behind that. I'm a political commentator. I've followed the UMP for a while, and I know that obviously Mr. Sarkozy in a way is trying to play for the right-wing voters and even for the far right for the far right voters. Sorry, and so obviously. This is a difficult issue. There is a question of legislation.
It is a difficult issue, and it is definitely a lot of people saying it's a political issue as well. People saying that as French President Nicolas Sarkozy's approval rating slipped to 34%, that is just 2 points above an all-time low. Well, the campaign has been criticised, as you can imagine, as political. With less than 2 years for the next presidential elections, it's been pegged, they say, to garner conservative support. And some say it's just a move to divert attention from other issues that have affected Sarkozy's unpopularity. High unemployment, a battered economy, unpopular pension reforms, financial scandals and controversies and debate over the national identity and the Islamic veil. Well, the list seemingly goes on and on and on. If we could perhaps then come to Mr. Kushin and say, are you concerned at all whether this is politics being played out here or not? One way or another, the Roma movement is going to be restricted because France at the end of the day can just threat to block Romanian and Bulgarian entry into the Schengen zone.
Our concern, of course, is a broad concern throughout Europe that up till now, countries with large Roma population have failed to integrate them into society. That they still face structural poverty and discrimination, which is why they choose to go to France or other countries in search of a better life. From our perspective, this is the fundamental issue. Yes, we are concerned that freedom of movement not be restricted, but we're also concerned that in Romania, Romani children are not getting an adequate education. In Bulgaria, Roma men and women are not able to find work. And throughout the region, Roma face structural poverty and serious discrimination, which prevents them from becoming productive members of society.
Okay, I think those are all good points. Ms. Prikop, the EU has provided Romania with billions of euros in funding to deal with some of those challenges that Mr. Kushin is mentioning there. Have countries like Romania and Bulgaria failed to really address the problem themselves?
First of all, it's a very complicated and delicate issue. It's not only the authorities' responsibility, it's also the responsibility of the Roma leaders, who are very wealthy people and who do not really take this opportunity, now Romania being in the European Union, to take care of their community.
Are you saying that wealthy Roma leaders are deliberately keeping their people in a cycle of poverty and illiteracy?
You know, Romania is a very corrupt country, and this goes to all layers of society, including the Roma community. There are many Roma NGOs who obtained important funds from the Romanian government and from the European Union, and the money vanished, or they have been spent in not very efficient ways. There is a collaboration between local authorities, Roma NGOs, European officials for their integration. The results are still very poor, and it's true that everything starts with education. There is also another reality in Romania. There are very wealthy Roma communities, entire villages full of 2-3-story mansions and luxurious cars and the state-of-the-art appliances in their homes. And these people, many of them, live from social aid. And there is a lot of concern from other Romanians that parts of the Roma population in Romania take advantage from the government and European Union and play the discrimination card many times.
Right, those are also
not in a very
points.
correct manner.
Let's try and take some of those points to Mr. Kushin again. Of course, you represent a Roma NGO, the Roma Rights Center. How do you respond to suggestions, not saying that your organization personally, but that some of the Roma NGOs are themselves guilty of abuse and corruption of the assistance programs, which are supposed to be helping the Roma population?
Well, first of all, my organization is a multinational one, which includes many Roma among its staff, as well as non-Roma. I think this is really a red herring. Of course, anytime you have flows of money from the European Union or from bilateral donors, whether it's to government or to NGOs, there will be money misspent. But this is not the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is the fact that the majority of Romani children are not finishing secondary school in Romania and other places. That the unemployment rate is among Roma is much higher than among non-Roma and falls way short of the European Union's own goals
but Robert, I mean,
under its Europe 2020
you say it's a red
program to
herring.
alleviate poverty.
Is it happening that
This is not
Roma
a question of misspent
assistance
funds.
programs are being abused by Roma NGOs?
I don't have specific information on whether assistance programs are being abused. I think we would like to see much better monitoring of the expenditure of EU funds for the benefit of Roma. I think we can all agree that that's necessary, and if there is abuse, it should be ended. But the European Union has to do a better job of seeing how that money has been spent.
All right, let's talk about joint EU action and go over once again to Mr. Rudeau. Perhaps some say it would be more helpful, rather than organizing a summit in Paris or a meeting in Paris for those countries which are against Roma immigration, why not organize a meeting to try and deal with some of the structural poverty problems, education problems, to solve what's driving these people out of their countries?
I think that in a way it's the first step in this direction, because before this reaction, strong reaction.
Mr. Rudeau, how can that be the first step achieved by the Paris meeting when none of the countries which are the hosts for the Roma population are even invited?
Yeah, it's for you to answer this question. I don't know. But I mean, what I'm telling is that the reaction, the fact that these illegal camps have been dismantled and that now we are talking about this particular issue, it means that at least we are trying to take this seriously, this issue more seriously than it has been so far. And that's why we are raising this issue about EU funds, which are apparently disappeared and they are not going in the right pockets. So in a way, that's the beginning. Something right could hopefully come out of this issue. But once again, I think that I haven't got any particular view, opinion, or about who should be in Paris and who should not be in Paris. I'm sorry.
All right, Ms. Pricot, is this going to feed xenophobia and ultimately instability at a time of economic crisis in many European countries? Is the European Commission dragging its feet on this issue?
It remains to be seen. I don't know. Bucharest is not willing to damage its relations with France, which are very close right now. France being Romania's first and foremost partner in the European Union. And there are very, very good relations. Romania count on France's influential voice inside the EU, as we have seen last year. Paris backed the Romanian nominee for agriculture commissioner, and it got to this position. So Bucharest is like walking on eggshells right now, and Romanian authorities are not willing to repeat the story with Italy, which happened in 2007, 2008, when illegal Roma camps from Rome and Milan have been dismantled, and many Roma have been sent back home, and the relationships suffered greatly. So Bucharest is watching this with a very diplomatic eye.
All right, Mr. Kuchen, perhaps a final point. If Romania doesn't want to rock the boat with France right now, as Ms. Pricot was explaining there, are you concerned that we're going to see at least a number of European Union countries come up with a common policy towards Roma immigration? And what would the implications of that be for the Roma community?
Well, first of all, any policy that's explicitly directed towards so-called Roma integration, we would argue to be a flagrant violation of European human rights law and EU law, because you cannot target an ethnic community in that way. We are concerned that states are feeling emboldened by the French move to take steps of their own, and we are concerned at the constant level of political rhetoric that is explicitly racist that goes unanswered by European institutions and seems to have be playing to domestic audiences. And this is the case in France and Italy. Even the Romanian foreign minister back in February was quoted as speaking about Roma's genetic propensity for crime. And there's been no political consequence to this kind of racist speech. If Europe is serious about its ideals at the vanguard of human rights and promoting a multi-ethnic, tolerant society, then they have to be much more forceful in countering this kind of racist rhetoric.
All right, we'll have to leave the discussion there and thank our guests so much for joining us. Robert Kuchen in Bucharest, Rodica Pricop, and of course in London, Christian Rudeau. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. You can feel free to email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. For now, it's goodbye.